Why did Dr. John Burton, an 18th century headmaster of Winchester College, own a book entitled The Secret History of Persia? The answer later in this video. As I explored at the beginning of this series, Dr. John Burton was an enigmatic character. He was and still holds the title of being the longest-serving headmaster of Winchester College, and his headship was relatively uncontroversial. So very few documents about it survive, not even a portrait of the man himself. Burton had a high Tory, or in other words, very traditional viewpoint. He supported High Church Anglicanism, the form of English Protestantism that most closely resembles Catholicism. This view was clearly demonstrated by his purchase of Lemoyne's Annunciation as an altarpiece for the college's chapel. Some have even suggested that Burton had Jacobite leanings, that he supported the reinstallation of the Catholic Stuarts to the throne of England. This would have been an extremely controversial opinion at the time. One of the few ways in which we can learn about Burton, his scholarly interests and his political leanings, is through the library of over 70 volumes that he gave to Winchester College. This text, which runs over many volumes, is about the history of monastic, religious and military orders, particularly Catholic ones. It is written in French. Alongside the substantial text which records information about each order, including their origins, are over 800 prints. The illustrations aim to depict each order's typical dress. Here we can see a member of the discalced Carmelites, discalced meaning unshod or barefoot. And here we can see the corresponding outfit for a woman. This text indicates that Dr. Burton had a great interest in Catholicism, and thus certainly lends credence to the idea that he was a High Church Anglican. Burton had a wide variety of other books on the Catholic Church, again revealing a deep interest in its workings. The books include many diagrams and even musical scores to explain the many ceremonies. This book describes the history of French monarchy, but does so in an innovative way, by exploring the artefacts, including manuscript illuminations, that surrounded the rulers themselves. The frontispiece of the book is a portrait of Louis XV on horseback. He was the great-grandson of the famous Louis XIV, the Sun King, and grandfather of the executed Louis XVI. The pictured Louis was monarch when this book was made in 1729. Here the text refers to the fleur-de-lis, the commonly used heraldic symbol in the French monarchy. I'd just like to note that there are two symbols for S. This was typical. At the end of a word, or immediately after another S, there is the symbol that we are used to in the modern day, but elsewhere there is a symbol closer to a barless F. This symbol is known as a medial or a long S. The SS symbol in German in part comes from this long S. Here we have depictions of some objects related to the French monarchy, some sceptres on the left and a throne on the right. And here are some crowns. Why was Dr. Burton so interested in the French monarchy? Well, firstly, it was Catholic, and this certainly aligned with his interests. But also, Burton had visited France. This is most probably where he bought Lemoyne's Annunciation. On such a trip abroad, he would have had the opportunity to see some of the sights of the French monarchy, piquing his interest, and the opportunity to buy many books like this. This explains why there is such a large prevalence of books relating to France in his library. Here's a book about the gardens of the famous French Palace of Versailles. The book's engravings are particularly notable. They depict the fountains in the gardens. Most of them, if not all, were made by Jean Lepôtre, a French engraver in the late 1670s. So finally, we come to the secret history of Persia. By now you might have guessed that this book was nothing to do with Persia. In fact, Persia serves as a substitute for France, the Persian court for the French one. Not criticising the French court directly, concealed the revolutionary nature of its contents. The fact that Burton bought and read the book suggests that he was merely interested, not invested, in the French court and in Catholicism. As he wanted to learn more about its problems, he didn't purely want to learn about ceremonies and monastic orders. This book convincingly shows that he merely leant towards Catholicism and didn't hold any deep-rooted convictions. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you to Dr. Foster particularly for allowing me to see and photograph the books featured. If you would like to learn more about Winchester College's collections, including some of the many volumes in the Fellows Library, then please do visit my website, godtress.wixsite.com/cornucopia.